Hey, and welcome to Perceptual. If you can't accept yourself, if forgiving yourself feels wrong, if something in you tightens when people say, just let it go, I don't think this means you're broken. I think it means that you have a system and it's working. You probably don't wake up one day and think, you know what would be fun? Chronic self rejection. No, you adopted rules, serious rules. And today I want to walk you through them, not to talk you out of them, not to convert you, just to say them out loud because most people never do. And I first learned to look at beliefs like this from Dr. David Burns, Feeling Good, Feeling Great, spoken about in previous episodes. One of the things that I love about his work is that instead of arguing with resistance, he asks, well, what's right about this belief? You know, and how is it helping you? And what would it cost to actually, give these things up? So that's what we're doing today. Buyer beware. And you can keep every belief by the end of this. I just want you to know what you're keeping. So let's start with the big one. If I accept myself, I'll become careless. You might not say that out loud, but it's there. It sounds like, if I stop being hard on myself, I'll slip. If I go easy, then standards drop. If I'm not vigilant, something bad happens. And what does that say about you that's positive and awesome? It says that you take responsibility seriously. It says that you don't want to hurt people. It says, you don't trust good intentions alone. And that's not weakness. That's conscientiousness. So how does it help then, do you think? Well, self-criticism becomes internal supervision. Keeps you sharp, keeps you scanning. It may even have improved your life. But here's the quiet assumption. You are apparently one compassionate thought away from becoming a menace. And that's the absurd edge. It's like the belief works if you fundamentally don't trust yourself without pressure. And giving it up would feel like removing the guardrails on a mountain road. Of course you resist that. Okay, next one. Accepting myself would mean that what I did wasn't bad. This one feels moral. If I forgive myself, I'll be minimizing harm. If I feel better, I'm denying reality. What's good about that belief? Well, it says integrity, doesn't it? You want right and wrong to mean something. You don't want emotional comfort to rewrite history. And that's admirable. How does it help us? It blocks rationalization, and it stops you from turning serious things into footnote. And here's a pushback that I hear already. If I let myself off the hook, then it's minimizing. Just notice the hidden equation. Acceptance equals approval. Relief equals denial. Is that actually true? Or is that just how the system frames it? Because if that equation holds, then the only way that that truth survives is that if you stay uncomfortable forever. And that's the part that most people haven't thought about. Okay, another one. If nobody punishes me, I have to. This one is common in high integrity people. Like you don't want special treatment. You don't want to get away with it. So you become the judge, the jury, and the executioner. That's the prison system, right? It says something strong about you, that you believe in justice, that you refuse to let your own behavior slide. And that's solid. And how does that help us? Then, well, when the world feels inconsistent or unfair, or self punishment restores order, it reassures your consequences exist. But now we need to say the quiet part. You've built a one person legal system with no appeal process, no parole, no mercy. And if you say, yeah, but someone has to hold me accountable, I agree. The question isn't whether accountability matters. The question is whether permanent self attack is the only way to express it. Here's another one that people don't say directly. Feeling okay would be unfair. You hear this in phrases like, I don't deserve to feel better yet. It wouldn't be right to move on yet. This belief protects fairness. It says emotional states should be proportional to harm. That's actually principle, isn't it? Now, you don't want to emotionally profit from wrongdoing. And how does it help us? Well, suffering becomes then a way of balancing the scales. The craziness here is that justice is now enforced through your nervous system. That is that you're carrying the weight because you think that it's morally required. But here's the hard question. Like, is chronic internal tension actually proportional justice? Or is it just prolonged pain? Reason 5. Let's talk about growth. Being hard on myself is how I improve is one of the most cultural, sport, business, performance, pressure works, right? Self-criticism creates urgency. It's fuel. And to be fair, it probably did improve you, right? That's why you trust it. What does it say about you? You value excellence. You hate complacency. You don't want to drift into mediocrity. And good. But here's the unspoken belief that if you're not miserable, then you won't move. Motivation, apparently, only responds by yelling. And if I suggest that there might be another way to drive growth, you might think, Yeah, but that's soft. And this reaction itself is not protecting growth, protecting the method. Reason 6. Self acceptance sounds like arrogance. This is another subtle one, isn't it? You see this in cultures suspicious of self esteem. Kindness to self equals ego, self respect equals delusion. And what's good about that? Well, it says humility, right? You don't want to become entitled, don't want to overestimate yourself. So self criticism becomes like a social safety net. But at the absurd edge, self esteem has been classified as narcissism. You build a system where liking yourself is like morally suspicious. Reason 7. Here's a heavy one. My suffering proves that I have a conscience. This one shows up after serious mistakes. Pain becomes evidence. I feel terrible, therefore I care. And that's actually beautiful. It means you're not indifferent. You're not cold, and you don't want to be someone who shrugs. But if pain is proof of morality, then relief feels dangerous. If I stop hurting, then what does that say about me? That's a terrifying question. So the system keeps hurting because ongoing pain feels safer than moral doubt. And that's powerful and tragic. Reason number 8. Another belief hiding in plain sight. If I accept myself, I'm going to feel everything that I've been avoiding. Some people are holding a lot together: grief, regret, loss. Self judgment becomes like a lid, keeps life functional, keeps you moving. What does that say about you? That you're surviving and you're strong enough to carry weight. How does that help us? It prevents emotional flooding. But giving it up feels like removing an emotional structural support. Shame becomes a sandbag holding back the water. And you're not crazy for not wanting the flood. Reason 9. This is another one. Like, forgiving myself would erase the lesson. This one is common in people who genuinely don't want to repeat mistakes. Pain becomes like a memory anchor. It says, like, never again. And that's intelligent. You value learning, you value growth. But here's the assumption underneath: the lesson only sticks if the pain never fully goes away. So growth apparently requires permanent bruising. Is that actually true? Or is that just the method you've known? Reason 10. If I accept myself, then I'll have to admit I was wrong about who I am. Identity now. This one is subtle. Sometimes it's easier to say I'm bad than to say that I'm human and inconsistent. Why? Because bad is stable. Complex is destabilizing. And this belief protects coherence, keeps the story simple. But here's the absurdity. Human inconsistency has always been outlawed. You're holding yourself to a standard that you don't apply to anyone else. Reason 11. Self-acceptance would remove the only control that I have. This one is about leverage. Like, self-attack enforces compliance. Threat works. And if you grew up in systems where threat was the motivator, then of course, that's why you trust it. But what does that say about you in terms of what's positive and awesome? It says that you value discipline, that you want to be governable and accountable. But this is extreme. You're managing yourself like a hostile takeover. And you might be thinking, well, yeah, but threat works. True. So does fear. And that doesn't mean it's the only governance model here that's available. And we're there. Reason number 12. And the final one, the quiet one. If I truly accepted myself, then all this suffering might have been unnecessary. And this is the hardest one to see. Why? Because if you let go of self-punishment, then you may have to grieve years of unnecessary pain. Pointless pain is harder to swallow than endless pain. Self-punishment retroactively justifies the past. At least I paid. But what does that say about you that's positive, right? It would say that you want meaning, that you don't want suffering to be random. That's deeply human. But this belief keeps pain alive because letting it go might reveal that it didn't have to last this long. That's confronting. I pulled over. Let's bring it all together. Now, here's the moment. If you've been saying that, yes, but, right? Good. That's not resistance to growth. That's resistance to violating values, right? So until these values are conscious, every attempt to change them is going to feel like self-betrayal. And that's the clue here. You'll try affirmations, mindset shifts, self-compassion exercises, and something inside you is going to quietly sabotage them. Not because you want peace, because you never agreed to give these values up. So what am I doing here? Like, I'm not persuading you. I'm not dismantling anything. I just want to lift the system into the light, right? You can keep every belief. I just want you to see what it's doing, right? What it protects, what it costs. Living by design doesn't start with changing yourself. It starts with understanding the architecture that you're already living inside. If you've never thought about it like this before, then that's the point. Let me know when we can look at the distortions hiding inside some of these beliefs. Comment below. But for now, clarity is enough and clarity is power. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Ciao.